Breath.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining tonight's edition of HR Mentorship Learning Series. And we'll be looking at the topic Macroeconomic Outlook, HR Trends, and Positioning for 2025. I'll be speaking majorly around the macroeconomic outlook and HR positioning for 2025. Before I proceed, I must thank my colleague, my brother, Dr. Elvis Azuka Ozegbe, for his push, intellectual contributions, materials, input to today's session. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be having a great time together. And just because a few people ask, this is my profile, just so one or two people get to know me a little better. And some people just think I'm an HR practitioner. Yes, you are correct. I'm also an economist. I have a PhD, economics from University of Lagos. Ladies and gentlemen, so this is not something I'm teaching out of the blue or something I don't have the competence or capacity to teach just because of feedback from one or two people. You understand? We always make sure that we have qualified, competent personnel to take classes and sessions, and it's also very good to stay within your area of competence and professionalism. Okay, so I have a BS in economics, MS in economics, and a PhD in economics. Of course, thankfully, as most of you know, I've been through the ranks in HR, working through 11, 12 sectors, and I've also witnessed multiple economic shifts, from military to civilian and across different republics. And we have gone through full cycle for some of these situations. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not supposed to be like a master class in economics, so we'll try to make it as simple as possible. And we'll be taking questions, contributions, and comments. Ladies and gentlemen, let's also keep it simple. All right, don't ask any complex economic questions here. My ultimate intention and aim is to navigate us back to HR, make us understand as HR what we should know and what we can do. Okay, now different aspects of the presentation will also appeal and make more sense to different category of people depending on the sector you play. All right, so first and foremost, what's the macroeconomy? So in economics, there are two major streams. You have the micro, M-I-C-R-O, and the macro. Now, macro speaks to the larger aggregate economy as a whole. You have industries, you have governments, you have all the firms combined. While in micro, for example, you are looking at individuals and you are looking at firms. In other words, companies and individuals. But at macro level, which we are looking at today, we are looking at the sum total, the whole economy as it were. You can say that the activities of micro players sum up to become macro activities at the end of the day. Now, what are some basic macroeconomic objectives? And this is general almost anywhere in the world, any country, any economy, it doesn't matter the government that is in power. Generally speaking, all right, macroeconomics tries to look at objectives, looks at achieving price stability. Okay, you don't want to go to the supermarket today, you get certain items at certain rate, then 2 hours later, it has changed. Or 1 day later, it has changed. And in a week, it's just fluctuating back and forth. That could be termed or looked at from a perspective of price instability. So in macroeconomics, we are trying to achieve price stability. We are trying to also achieve economic growth. We are also trying to achieve employment generation. And we are also trying to achieve balance of payments equilibrium. By that, you want a situation close to a situation where the amount of imports you have and the amount of exports you have are not too far from each other. So for example, if you import more than you export, then you have a negative balance. If you export more than you import, then you have a positive balance. And those are the kind of information that now, dovetails into when you say we have social amounts in our foreign accounts. That's like your trade surplus. Now, going on, moving ahead, still talking about the general overview of macroeconomic in general. Okay, there are like 4 policies, generally speaking. Okay, you have monetary policy, you have the exchange rate policy, we have fiscal policy, and you have trade policy. Now, each of these policies can have different options and different dynamics, but broadly speaking, monetary policy. So when you hear things like the central bank has moved the MPR, monetary policy rate, upward or downwards, those are the kind of things you see. Then the exchange rate too has to do with things that we do. Is Naira gaining over the dollar or is losing over the dollar, as the case may be. Fiscal policy, for example, can speak to things like taxation, things like revenue, debt, budget. Those are things around fiscal policy. Trade policy speaks to things like, tariff, border closure. For example, in the last administration, when the land borders were closed, that's like a kind of trade policy, things like ban, quota, and so on, and so forth, So those are those kind of things, For exchange rate, I mentioned that when we are talking about appreciation, depreciation, devaluation, and so on and so forth, these are the kind of things that may count in that area. We also have what we call like the domestic sector. Domestic means within your country. Okay, domestic sector, we have what we call the real sector. We have this sector, for example, is where quite a number of us play, people who are in manufacturing, real estate, and so on and so forth. Then you also have the government sector, and this includes the 3 tiers of government, federal, state level, and the different arms of government, executive, legislator, and judiciary. Okay, that's the government sector. You also have what we call the financial and monetary sector. Okay, and then you also have like the external sector. So in the global region, you have global GDP, you have global inflation, for example, oil prices, for example, affect Nigeria because we're a major oil producing and oil importing country, at least before Dangote refinery came to bear. You also have things like geopolitical tension. So when you hear things like Russia and Ukraine, Israel and Hezbollah, and so on and so forth. Then all these things like OPEC oil producing, global growth, outlook, risk, those kind of things. So this is just a general overview, of the kind of dynamics. And just to also quickly put it out there, these are the kind of information or they try to have. So they might have it directly because they go to classes, lectures, sessions like this. And most organizations, when they have retreats, this is one of the things that form the initial part of their retreat, because you need to have this robust understanding. All right. And some of the CEOs, C-level, so people like in accounts, finance, they also have relative good visibility and understanding around these dynamics. Let me just quickly throw this into. So when management or C-levels are saying, oh, HR will be strategic, this is part of it. Because if HR can connect with this particular ideas in general, understand how these things impact on production, productivity, funding, financing, output, and so on and so forth. Chances are, as HR, you will come across as more strategic and more dynamic as ever. So let's quickly start from the global GDP. But because I understand that some people may not have done maybe elementary economics either at O level or in the university, and let me just say that GDP, means gross domestic product. GDP. We say it a lot in Nigeria, GDP. I've learned not to always assume, even if it is for the benefit of one person on this live session or who will be watching this recording later. Okay, so GDP stands for what? Gross domestic product. And it's used to, it's like a measure of the economic performance and growth of a country. Typically, it represents the total value of all final goods and services produced within the country's border over a specific period of time, typically within a year. All right, so GDP includes the value of personal consumption expenditures, that's household spending. It could also include, for example, gross investments, that's business spending on capital goods, and it can include government spending, federal, state, and local, okay, and it could also include the net export. In other words, export minus imports. Different ways are used to calculate this. Let me just mention them just in passing. You could have what we call the production approach, adding up the value of all goods and services. You could have the expenditure approach, adding up the amount spent by household, business, government, and foreigners. And you could have income approach, which is adding up the income earned by household and businesses. So just to provide you with that brief overview. Now, on your screen right now, okay, so pay attention. This thing is very easy, very simple. Work with me, all right? Now, you will see we have three colors. One is, so my color may not be good, but this is close to blue. In case it's not blue, somebody can say it's onion blue. So you can put the real color in the chat box. Okay, then this is this orange or something close to orange, all right? And this is some type of gray. And then this is some type of yellow. I know those may not be the exact color. Some of you are specialists in color, so you can let us know the colors here. So you have, for example, 2022, okay, which is in that shade of blue. 2023, that shade of orange. 2024, that shade of gray. And 2025, that shade of yellow. Now you see here that the 2022, the shade of blue is what is actual, while the shade of orange is estimate. 2024 is projection, 2025 is projection. And this is from IMF WEO July 2024. So I'm going to be using a lot of data from different sources. As much as possible, we've tried to reference all the sources so that you also know it's not as if we just created or conjure this data to put together. No, we didn't create any of this data. They exist in different databases, you know, IMF, World Bank, Nigerian Bureau of Statistics, and so on and so forth. Now, again, we are looking at global economic output. So the first, if you are following the cursor here, look at the GDP, okay, is 3.5. Now, the estimate is what? 3.3. That's for 2023. And then for 2024, the projection was 3.2. And then for 2025, it was 3.3. That's the global average. Please pay attention. Global average. Now, for advanced economies, of course, you know Nigeria is not part of them. Look at their own here. So you will see here 2.6, 1.7, 1.7, 1.8. Now, you immediately see that the average for advanced countries is lower than the average for the whole world put together. Please pay attention. Okay, and I'm particularly excited what we are doing today because it also helps you to read and appreciate data. So you don't make it say what you want. You see it for what it is. You cannot agree or disagree. That's a different ballgame. So one of the things we are doing tonight is a form of data analysis. Just this time around, we are looking at economic data. I hope you are together. Please don't get lost. Yeah, you will enjoy this. You will understand this. Just flow with me. Now, intentionally, now we now have the United States. This is a country. Now you can see 1.9, 2.5, 2.6, 1.9. You will see again that the United States is, so to speak, as in 2022, is worse off than the advanced countries average, worse off than the world output, which is 3.5. Then area, see, for 2022, they were very close to world average. But by the time you move to 2023, 2024, and 2025, you will see that it's worse off than the world, the advanced, and US. Now, let's come to emerging markets and developing countries. we can assume that Nigeria may not also necessarily be an emerging market. Maybe all these Middle East, some of these other countries that are not, so to speak, advanced, but they are not also third world, for lack of a better precision, even though sometimes we may put developing countries in this emerging and developing. But something is instructive here. Look at 2022, 4.1, better than the world average. Note, we are speaking about gross domestic product. Look at 2023, okay, better than world average. 2024 projection, better than world average. 2025 projection, better than world average. Now come to Sub-Saharan Africa. Nigeria is clearly here. There's no ambiguity here. You can see here 4.0, better than world average. 3.4, okay, better than world average. 3.7, better than world average. 4.1, better than world average. Not only is it better than world average, it's better than advanced economies, better than United States, better than euros, and so it's not necessarily better than emerging markets and developing countries. Now, this is one of the reasons why you will see, generally speaking, a lot of FDI. FDI means foreign direct investments coming towards emerging markets and developing countries, coming towards Sub-Saharan Africa, because this is where the growth is. So to some extent, you can say advanced economies, US, Euro area, are saturated. So if you take investment funds, you take money, $1 there, it may be easier to turn your $1 in Africa to $2. If it's the same $1 in US or advanced, it may earn you $1.2. Now, for those of you who ever wonder, why do we have a lot of Chinese, a lot of Lebanese, a lot of Europeans here? This is the economic logic. Again, we are talking macroeconomics. Somebody can say, oh, all my cousins, all my family members, they've run away to Canada, they've gone to US. The stock exchange there, the private equity there, where are they sending their money to work for? They may not necessarily like your government, they may not necessarily like your weather, but they like the returns or potential returns on money. So you can see, I hope somebody has learned one or two things and picked one or two things. Again, we are using data. So this is not about, do you like what the data is saying? Do you agree? Do you, in statistics, there's one slogan that in God we trust. All others must come with what? Data. Ladies and gentlemen, moving forward, let's now narrow down to Nigeria. I'm aware a large chunk of people on this call are based in Nigeria or have strong affinity to Nigeria. So for the purpose and sake of Nigeria, we'll be looking at the trend since the civilian administration, democracy, untruncated now. So from 1999, so to speak, till date, which is 2024. So the last set of data we have is Q3, that's Q3 2024. Okay, we are now in Q4. So there's no way to have Q4 data until maybe January and February next year. Now, you will see that when we started in 1999, what was our GDP? 0.6, so to speak. And pre-1999, we had what? Military. And then during the Obasanjo regime, which was about 8 years, you can see 5.1, 5.9, 15.3, 7.4. So seemingly, again, please, this is not a political discourse, please. Based on data, it will look like the best period in Nigeria post the military rule is the Obasanjo era. Now, some of the things that contribute to this is because almost soon after he took over government or power, he brought in GSM. That's the MTN, the Econet, the Glo of this world. And that unlocked new areas of the economy, which also directly and indirectly began to contribute to things like online and internet, all the things that had to do with internet. Are we together? You can see here. And subsequently, we now began to, will I say, decline, 9.3, 8. So 2010, 8.0, 9.1, which was somewhat another type of peak. Then we nosedive again, and then by 2016, minus 1.6. By 2020, minus 1.9. At least in 2020, we should be able to deduce the main reason for this. That was COVID year. Are we together? COVID year. Then things began to, will I say, pick up? But you now see now, since 2020, we have 3.4, 3.1, 2.7, 2.9, 3.2, 3. So if you look at this, you almost want to say that, so to speak, that you don't blame the current administration. Look at it historically. Even though all the governments, they say government is what? Is a continuum. But you can see what the data is saying. So when you look at this, what does the future hold? That's a Jamboard question. But you can see how we got to where we are today. So I'll just leave it at that. Ladies and gentlemen, let me also quickly mention that we have different sectors in the Nigerian economy. Largely, we have service, we have industry, and we have agriculture. And you can see on the screen very quickly that these are the key drivers of the economy. Service generally contributes 58.76%, while industry contributes 18.62%. Agriculture contributes 22.61%. Why should you know some of these things? For example, depending on the organization you are the HR for, which aspect of the economy are you rendering service to? Is it agri? So if it's agri, so to speak, you are contending with 22.61%. If it is industry, for example, you are contending with 18.62. If it is service, you are contending with 58.76. So these are the kind of things that gives you ideas around the scope and magnitude of your market. Okay, and if you are the type that likes to look at the line graph, you can see this line graph now. Agri, you can see industries, and you can see service. And you can see that from 2021 to date, it's neither here nor there, or more of even, plateauing, or that service. You can see service here, plateauing, but it went high 2001 and then nosedived. See the same thing for agri. It's almost downward sloping. Same thing for industry. So you can see all those same characteristics and attributes. Now let's quickly look at, generally speaking, expanding sectors and contracting sectors. Again, why are we putting all this information out there? Not to scare anybody, but so that you have a realistic overview. So for example, if you are operating in a contracting sector, I'm not saying get out of the sector. You may not even be able to get out if you are not doing all the business, but it begins to let you know how much longer will your industry be in the state where it will be. And for example, is it a good time to, so to speak, be increasing salary anyhow? But some people think, oh, we are making a lot of money. They are not. Or they are making it in a diminishing manner. I hope what I'm saying makes sense to non-economists, right? So look at contracting sector. Contracting means somehow is reducing. All right. So you have metal ores, road transport, rail transport, motor vehicles, financial institutions, arts, entertainment, oil refinery, publishing, motion pictures, air transport, and real estate, crop production. I know, again, some of these sectors, it may be controversial, you may not agree, but it is the available data that is official that is used to generate this. Okay, and then you may also have isolated cases. So you can say, oh, so entertainment is booming. They will look at everything holistically, maybe not necessarily online streaming or just cinema. They will look at everything end to end. And entertainment may be broader than what the glamour part of it. Just also put that out. So expanding sectors, according to this data, you see water transport, livestock, electricity, gas, steam, air condition supply, coal mining, quarry, other services, insurance, crude, petrol, and natural gas, construction. So you can see some form of, will I say, contradiction here. So construction is expanding, Meanwhile, real estate is contracting. Can you see some form of contradiction or dichotomy or lacuna, as the case may be? Fishing, other manufacturing, electrical and electronics, basic metal, wood, professional, scientific, and technical service, okay, education, expanding, human health and servicing, then forestry. Again, that's also to give us some form of overview. So let me quickly run through some of the things that I have shown, and some I'll still show through graphs and charts, especially during this regime, okay, this current president in authority as at the date you are listening to me. Okay, CBN, of course, you know, they shifted to a free-floating exchange rate system, merging all forex markets into the investor and exporter window. So they try to make sure that the exchange rate is the same instead of having multiple exchange rates, trying to achieve transparency, trying to stabilize the exchange rate. And they are trying to say, look, let us know the true value of the Naira. And some of the implications this has, you know, which many of us can testify to, relate with, is it has led to higher costs, especially for companies whose business rely on imports. Maybe you import your raw materials, you import your equipment, your capital goods. This has consequently reduced our profit margins, and it had also increased our investment risk. You know, for example, imagine your company took a loan, say from US, UK, China, dollar-denominated rate loans. This has meant that, so to speak, somehow your loan has gone up because of the devaluation of the Naira. For individuals also, it has led to higher cost of living because of the consequential inflation, especially for imported goods. It has also reduced the purchasing power. Purchasing power means the disposable income of the average individual, including of your staff, has reduced, including of your customers. So many people who buy 20 of your products in a month before now struggle to buy 10 of it. And that 10 is if it is a must, okay? And some organizations have had to like lay off workers. Some people have, you know, lost their job. Some have had to even take a pay cut, depending on the organization and the industry. The second thing, after this foreign exchange policy and its implication, is inflation, which we had already nosedived into. And inflation is projected to decline. Currently, you know, the average inflation in Nigeria now is around 3.8%, but it's projected. Note that word, projected. Doesn't mean so that you won't say, only you told us last year that it will decline to 16.19.4 is a projection. A lot of, you know, in accounts, there's one phrase we say, ceteris paribus, all things being equal. Again, because of this high inflation, you can see a reduction in profit margins, higher borrowing costs, possible decline in you know, turnover for individuals, rising cost of essentials, you know, higher borrowing costs, declining net worth, and so on and so forth. Then the third thing is government spending or government revenue and spending. Revenue rose by 76% in 2023. And driven by 200% or more increase in oil in earnings and a 58% increase in non-oil revenue. So we have both increase in oil earnings, and we also have an increase in non-oil revenue earnings. Okay, the expenditure trend, you know, this has also increased. The current spending, okay, has increased by 67%. And then the capital expenditure has increased only by 33%. I hope you have an appreciation of what the current spending means. Things like wages and salaries, you know, for civil servants, all these kind of things fall into the current capital expenditure. Will include, for example, maybe the investment in road construction, highways, those kind of things, you know, just to keep it as simple as possible. Then for fiscal implication here, we're talking about borrowing and deficit financing arising. You will see this government has borrowed like never before. they've really borrowed. And when you borrow, you have to pay your debt. So you have debt servicing, which is consuming a large portion of the budget. Okay. Very massive here. Nigeria's debt reached $108 billion in 2023, reduced slightly to 91.5 billion by Q1 2024. Again, that's implications. Okay. High interest rates on loans, pressure on government revenue to service debts. So we have to be aware of all of these things. So, for example, some of us, our organizations, are trying to access new loans. So you will see how easy it is for the organization to access the loan and at what rate. So don't just think the CEO is just mad, is just angry. Pressure everywhere, left, right, and center. You also have trade and capital importation. Import has grown significantly, okay, outpacing exports, leading to trade deficits. Our export revenue relies heavily on oil, with major destinations including United States of America and Europe. Now, capital importation, okay, we're seeing some recent improvements with respect to capital importation, but it's still below the pre-pandemic levels, that is before COVID. All right, then debt financing and its consequences, rising debt, inflation, interest rates, crowding out private investment. Some opportunities may include, if well utilized. So borrowing money in itself is not bad. It's what you borrow it for and what you use it for. You can borrow it for A and use it for B, or don't use it at all. Okay, so if borrowed funds could spur growth through productive investment. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm trying to move on now. You will see here that the critical drivers of the economic growth in Nigeria in 2024, the year we are in, we've seen increase in oil production, okay, prices. We've seen increase in government spending. We've seen some, sometimes some of these things will be debatable. Stability in exchange rate and increase in foreign reserve. Yes, we can confirm that increase in foreign reserve. You can also see some increase in consumer and business confidence. That's very debatable. And this is according to SEMTL research. Increase in agricultural output, yes, at least personally, I can also confirm that. Our data shows that our real GDP growth rate is about 3.19%, okay, which is somewhat like some progress. Now let's quickly look at inflation, okay, so that we can see inflation generally. Now, you have different types of inflation too, headline inflation, the main one. You have all items, you have food inflation. Now, food inflation is in green. You will see here that of the three types of inflation, food inflation is the highest. And now everybody is affected by food. So, you pay your employees' salaries. And no matter what, even if you are fasting, you must break. Or you will have children or dependents who are not fasting. So you can see the food inflation has moved from, we can see the inflation from 2016. Look at the progression to 2024. So in 2016, for example, when inflation was around, depending on which of the inflation was, so if let's say we choose food inflation, which is green, from like 15% to 33.4%. You can see that. So no matter how much you are paying people, you can see how increasingly a greater proportion, percentage of their salary is being spent on food, on groceries, on consumables. You can see that. Okay, so they will keep asking you increase salary no matter how much you have increased. What are the key drivers of inflation? Money growth, exchange rate unification. That forced the dollar to appreciate over the naira, and a lot of things were almost a dollar dependent. Some unproductive fiscal spending, monetization of deficit financing, exchange rates, imported inflation, inconsistent monetary policy, and the monetary policy has been, rising, the NPR rates, which of course is also is increasing. Then, very important, all of us can relate with this, increasing energy price. And by energy, you remember that diesel subsidy was even the first to be removed. So anything relied on diesel, the price went up. Diesel was deregulated even way before petrol. Many of us here, I'm sure, we use gas or know people who use gas. I know we can test almost every time you go and refill your, for example, 12 kg, you will see that the price has gone up almost every single time. In fact, by the time you are going to buy gas, you plan to pay more. You know by default that it's not going to be the rate. Then also in Nigeria, we also have insecurity and flood. In the north, a lot of, well, let me just say herdsmen. Don't let me associate any tribe to it. Herdsmen, and clashes and banditry, okay, insecurity in general has displaced some people from their farm. And sadly too, we've also had occurrence of natural disasters. All of us, I'm sure not too long ago, you remember what happened somewhere around Borno, where I think a dam or something, where it collapsed or something, massive flooding. Okay, and there have been pockets of this in different parts of the world, Nigeria in particular, leading to, so to speak, scarcity or shortage of food, and then putting pressure on the price of food. You understand? So these are some of the drivers. Okay, I'll just gloss over some of these on them spoken around government revenue is increasing. So we'll move on very quickly. Also spoken to around government expenditure is also increasing. Okay. Public debt, we've spoken around it, is increasing. It's increasing. We're taking more and more loans just to be able to take certain actions, investment projects. If I'm not mistaken, I think the federal government has even gone back to the house to secure approval for another set of loans. We've also spoken around our imports. Okay, our imports. You can see here 2018. Look at the imports. 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023, and you can see some of the areas where we import mineral fuel, chemicals related, food and animals, beverages and tobacco, manufacturing goods. Our top 5 origins include China. So we import a lot from China, United States of America. We import a lot from Belgium. We also import a lot from India and then from Holland or Netherlands, as the case may be. Okay, and our foreign trade stood at 26 billion as at that quarter. These are exports too. Our export has increased by 8.2%. You can see from 2019 to 2023, according to the National Bureau of Statistics. Total exports in Q1 2024 was valued at 19.17 trillion naira, okay, reflecting a 51% increase compared to 12.69 trillion in Q4 2023 and a 195% rise compared to 6.49 trillion in Q1 2023. Our top 5 destinations that we export to, okay, United States of America, still our number 1 trading partner, Indonesia, okay, France, and Spain. So you can see that some of the people we import a lot from, we don't, so to speak, sell a lot to. And some of the people we sell a lot to, we don't also import a lot from, vice versa. We also have the capital importation, okay, and there's been a steady decline here. You can see it here from 2017, went up to very high 2019 relatively, and then from 2020, 2021, it has been nosediving, which means like as if foreign direct investment is reducing. Now, let's look at the current government, ladies and gentlemen. The current government, right? So let's look at the current government. And again, please remove politics from your mind, please. We are just looking at the data as it is. Okay, you notice that we've used data from 1999 till date. If you looked at global data, we've looked at local data. Okay, please. All right, and this is the only data available. There's nothing else. Any other thing is just our mind. That is playing mind games with us. Now, look, base year means when the government came in. They've done about a year plus now. So base year is when they came in. The GDP when the government came in was at 2.51%. Okay, it's currently 2.98. Manufacturing growth rate was 2.20. So it's now 1.49. So you see that for GDP, there is a gain, so to speak, of 4.7. And for manufacturing growth rate, there's a decline of 0.71. So for example, if you are in manufacturing industry, you can see that. Okay, you can see that. Inflation, the base year when they came, it was around 22.41. About now is 33.95. You can see here. So the inflation is becoming worse. That's 11.54. It's becoming worse by a margin of 11.54. Now, petrol per liter, when this government came in, was around 238. Then I'm sure we all know that this data is not even correct as of today, because if I'm not mistaken, fuel is now over 1,000 naira. But you can see the percentage change here. If you look at some of the financial statistics here, you'll see money supply 27.69 when they came in, around now 39.39. The MPR, which is the rate at which loans can be taken, by the banks from the CBN, thereabout, just to make it as simple as possible. When they came, it was around 18.50. Now it's 26.25 or even higher, which means cost of borrowing is even increasing. This is the performance of the equity market as a percentage of GDP. It was 12.95 at the base year when they came in. It's around 23.55 now. You can see stock market indices. This has moved up from 55,738 to 97,612. Now let's look at some international finance statistics. You can see here, dollar was 461 when they came in, 1479. Some people will say it's 1819, depending on where and how we are sourcing it and the timing. So exchange rate, you can see our external reserve when this administration took over, it was 35 billion. Currently around 32 billion, a slight dip. Current account balance of GDP, from 0.96 to now 1.90. Look at the public finance. So this is like a summary of the conversation we've been having in the past 40 minutes or thereabout. You can see here public debts. You can see FG revenue as a percentage of GDP. So you see here that the revenue is going up. It moved up from 3.27 to 4.40. Again, you see that the government seemingly is trying to tighten taxation, trying to widen the net and try to enforce that more and more of us continue to pay. Again, HR practitioners should pay attention. Some of us that work in organizations and establishments where we evade tax, avoid tax, all those kind of things, chances that we'll be able to continue to do that is diminishing. You want to be sure and not caught in that kind of web as much as possible, and your signature is not on those kind of things. If by chance you work in an organization that is doing under the table arrangements. Okay, so let's just move on now very quickly. Now, let's look at the projections again. And projections, so this is not if prophecy, these are just projections based on historicals. And in economics, we always say ceteris paribus, which means all things being equal. Now, look at the 2024 budget. What was the oil price benchmark? 77.96 US. 2025 is projected to drop to 75.0 drop. Okay, 2026 slight increase from 2025 drop to 76.2, then drop again in 2027. Don't forget that if two head of states, global head of state now, I'm not talking about machine country, decide to go to war, you can just change this dynamics. So before you say, this is forecast, they are lies, it's holding certain things constant. All right. Oil production 1.78 2024. Okay, and this data is sourced from Ministry of Budget and Economic Planning, National Bureau of Statistics, and two other sources. Okay, so you see here exchange rates 2024 800 naira, 2025 1,400, 2026 1,004, 2027 1,004. You can see oil production is expected to shoot up 1.78 to go to 2.06, 2.10, 2.32. I was in a company retreat, one of the oil majors last week, and I could even see the organization, because they're into oil production and exploration, how they are positioning to explore more and export more, and the FG is trying to get more, because currently Nigeria is not utilizing fully our OPEC quota. So we even want to use up to our quota, so that we can earn more, even on the current dollar rate per barrel of oil. So we still have a window can exploit. Now, inflation is 21%. They are about 24.40, projected to drop to 15.75. Can I get an amen? Then by 2026, drop to 14.21. 2027, drop to 10.04. So you will see where some of these, I don't know what Elo4 in English is. Go and be patient. Things will get better. These are some of the data informing and influencing that kind of confidence, So, but don't go and tell your staff now that, guys, don't worry, inflation will go down next year, but it is expected. Okay, so all things being equal, you can see that's a projection. Our current non-oil GDP, you can see it's here, 223,989. We expect it to go up. So if your company is into production, see what you two can export as a company or as a person, so that you will help Nigeria shore up our non-oil GDP. So we hope that it will continue to rise and even go above and beyond 409,255 billion by 2027. You can see the projection. Then the oil ratio of GDP, you can see oil 12. We also expect continuous improvement. You can see that. Then nominal GDP, we expect to see growth, continuous growth. The actual main GDP here now, 3.8 2024, expected to grow to 4.6 2025, come down to 4.4 in 2026, and grow to 5.5%. Okay, and you will see that this is consistent in alignment with the global average, or even above global average, and with that of sub-Saharan Africa. Then our imports too is expected to, so by next year, we even expect our import to almost double from 32.453 to 66. You can see that. And then plateau around 65,670.9. Okay. Our nominal consumption is also expected to continue to increase. So the question is, if consumption is increasing, are people consuming your organization's product and services? So there is money. The question is where, and is it coming to the direction of your organization? All right, ladies and gentlemen, look at we'll wrap up and then move to, so to speak, what HR can do, and I'll expect our contributions, as no man is an island of knowledge. Again, so we'll wrap up where we started. You can see world average 2023, 2024, 2025, 3.2. 3.2. That's for the GDP, the growth now. The global growth rate were estimated to grow at 3.2. And you can now see for advanced economy again, it's supposed to grow, but at a much lower rate than the world. Euro area grow at a much lower rate than the world, a much lower rate than advanced economics. You can see emerging markets and developing countries are expected to do better than the world average. UK, look at this, 0.1, 0.5. If you look at this data, nobody will japa, although I know when you japa as an individual, it's different from macroeconomic indices because it's country to country, not necessarily talking about the lot of the individual. You can see Brazil, you can see Sub-Saharan Africa, still much better than the world average. You can now see this South Africa. For those of you who like to go to South Sea, you can see their projected growth rate 0.6, 0.9, 1.2. Nigeria is still way better, but slightly worse off than the Sub-Saharan African average, which is 2.9, 3.1, 3.0, as against SSA Sub-Saharan Africa average of 3.4, 3.8, and 4.0 for 2023, 2024, and 2025. The good news is somehow the world generally has been able to avoid a recession. We were close to it, but we avoided it. And major emerging market economies did not suffer abrupt downturns. And one of the reasons is because the global economy has been quite resilient. All this Israel-Gaza war, attacks on vessels on Red Sea, Iran's attack on Israel, and so on and so forth. Things could have been way worse, but somehow the world pulled through. Now, the question for us now. So if you want to speak now, this is a good opportunity to drop your comments in the chat box, or if you raise your hands to speak, I will unmute. Please do me a favor. Don't mention your organization. You can just speak about the organization without mentioning organization. I try to protect people, without being immodest. I've gotten Tier 1 CEOs call me that they watch. So please don't mention your organization. So, but you can just tell us, just say for my company, don't mention the name, please. You understand? So, based on the macroeconomic performance that we have looked at in the last 50 minutes thereabout, okay, how is it affecting your organization? I'm sure we are already feeling the effects so far. There's nothing new. So you can either raise your hands to speak, and you can type and chat in the chat box if you want to drop your comments. After this, we'll now proceed to a few thoughts of mine, and again, few thoughts of ours too as a collective, because I would like us to share ideas on what we can do. All right, and don't forget that when we are looking, because we are coming from data, so anything we are sharing now should not be emotional, it's not sentimental, and it's not doomsday. Do you get where we are coming from? It's not. Now I'm trying to check. I can't see any hands just yet. No, someone must definitely have something to say. Someone must definitely have something to say. And I've also not seen a message. So let me just take a breather and take a cup of water. Okay, so if you don't want to respond to my questions, in one phrase, one word, one sentence, how has this session been for you so far? In one word, one phrase, one sentence. I need to know that we are following and we are getting some form of enlightenment, illumination, or maybe shock. I can see my Oga at the top. Thank you so much. My brother Patrick, thank you so much. Thank you so much. All right. So let me attempt to make some progress now. Let me attempt to make some progress with respect to this conversation. Oh, thank you so much, my sister Ezine Obiora. Thank you for joining despite your tight, busy schedule. Thank you. Thank you so much, Uchenna Ubechi. Thank you. Now, again, some of these things may look like a recap, but it's important we consolidate our learnings together. Some of the effects of, for example, inflation and foreign situation, increased cost of borrowing. So for many of our companies, we have taken one loan or the other. What happened to many of our companies is, I'm using a hypothetical figure now. Maybe when you took the loan, you took it at 15%. Along the line, the loan moved from 15% to 28%. So if you're in HR, if you're not careful, you may not necessarily be part of that conversation. In fact, when the loan interest rate moved, it was, I don't want to use the word fiat. The bank just wrote to your organization that, sorry, your loan interest rate is now, the advice that effective based on the MPR is now, is not really, the room for negotiation wasn't heavy like that. Are we together? So your company is spending more on their loans if your organization has any loan or multiple loans. All right. Okay. Thank you so much. I can see a contribution I would like to read here. I won't mention your name because of the contribution, but thank you so much, my brother. And it says here, I am working in a publishing sector. Please pay attention, whereby we print our educational materials abroad. Forex has been a bottleneck for us, and we are still struggling to stay afloat. In view of this, we have had to downsize and right size. Again, I won't mention the person's name, but thank you so much, my brother. I see you. I appreciate you. I'll read that again because sometimes, when people drop their own firm experience, so that you know that what we are saying is not some economic jargons or theory. Okay, I'll read that again for emphasis. And please, you can also read from the chat box. Pay attention to that. And my brother says that I'm working in the publishing sector, whereby we print our educational materials abroad. You can see import. Forex has been a bottle. In other words, sourcing, because they have, so to speak, there's almost no black market again because of the consolidation, Sourcing Forex has been a bottleneck. So you even have Naira, you want to buy dollar at whatever rate, you are struggling to buy, and then what have they done? They have downsized. Downsize means they have laid off some workers. It had nothing to do with HR or management being malicious. This is about what? Survival. Okay, and they are out to right size means that, maybe before they were having some excess capacity. Maybe one department they were 11, when in the real sense they should not be more than 9. Right size means, and sometimes right size also means maybe in a place where they were 5, they are now 7. In other words, they moved resources to more optimal domains of the organization to get more value. Thank you so much, my brother. I appreciate that. I look forward to more contributions specific to organizations like that. So we've spoken on increased cost of borrowing. We've also, next thing is consumption demand declines. So the natural consequence is that depending on which sector of the, if you are selling 100 quantity per month before, most likely it has dropped to 70 or 60 or 50 or 40. Why? People's purchasing power has declined. What else do I want to speak around there? You also have rising social issues. So more than ever before now, you have a situation where, I'm saying this with due respect. So let's assume that everyone on this call had 10 family members who used to beg, borrow, solicit for money from us before. And maybe they used to beg and solicit and borrow money from us once in a month. What has happened is those 10 has now increased to what? 15 and 20. Because some people who didn't used to beg from us before are now begging from us. And the people who used to beg from us maybe once in a quarter are now begging twice in a month. So you can see pressure everywhere. You can see pressure everywhere. For businesses, okay, you can see that profit margin continues to decline. You may, in fact, if you have a profit, you are lucky. But if your profit last year or 2 years ago was 33%, it may now have dipped or diminished to 12% or 5%. I've seen another contribution. I won't mention the person's name. Thank you so much, my brother. And my brother says here that in 2015, the company I worked due to Forex had to downsize large number of workforce. It affects salary payments for almost a year. They almost went bankrupt. Okay, that's even long. We are even looking at 2024 current realities now. But thank you for taking us way back. So, okay, profit margin continues to decline. All right, cost of capital increases. That's to borrow loans, buy equipment, and so on and so forth. Turnover is declining, decreasing. Okay, then the risk of default. So, which means even if you two as an organization you borrow people money, or people buy things from you on credit. Hire purchase, you give people certain credit lines. The rate of your customers, clients defaulting now is higher than maybe 2-3 years ago because of all this pressure. So that is to tell you that you may want to quickly reevaluate with your finance department your credit line. People you are giving 30 million, 50 million. Maybe you want to reduce 30 million to 15 million. Why? You want to reduce your exposure because the risk of default is high because there is pressure. You understand? And some of these things, don't wait till you experience 1 or 2 defaults, massive defaults, before you begin to reevaluate your credit lines. So your credit parameters and ratings must. I'm already dropping insights and tips as to what HR can do in conjunction with other departments. Don't forget that HR is a strategic business partner. Let's quickly recap again. What are the macroeconomic impacts on organization? Cost pressure, currency devaluation and inflation, increase the cost of what? Imported inputs, reduce profits, margins, borrowing costs rise due to higher interest rates, decreasing capital investment. So your chance of getting foreign direct investment or all this venture capital relative to a few years ago has reduced now. Okay, market dynamics, declining consumer purchasing power, it has affected the demand for your goods and services. Business relying on imports may struggle with supply chain disruptions. Now, look at supply chain. Again, if your company is dependent on imports, it's one thing to even be able to source the dollar to buy the imports and bring it in. The other thing is for it to be supplied as a when due. Supply chain disruption, which means if you can stock up more than you used to stock up, please do so, especially for essential items. I remember when I used to work in oil and gas, which is not too long ago. There's a part of what we do, we're into production of engine oils, lubricants, and the like. There's something called base oil. If we run out of stock of that base oil, we will not be able to produce our other lubricants. All right, so that's part of supply chain disruptions. You may also want to expand your supply sources. Maybe you have just 2 sources. You want to increase it to 5. And maybe your main source is in Europe, for example. You want to check Asia. Check for alternative. Why? War, conflict in any of these geopolitical tensions can make an incursion and cause a disruption to your supply chain. You experience higher operational risk. Exchange rate volatility introduce risk to what? Financial planning. Security concerns rising from what? Social impact. Investor confidence. Uncertainty in what? In forex markets, and higher country risk may deter foreign direct investment. I'm reiterating all these things so that it stays in your subconscious. I'm not trying to affect your faith. I'm trying to affect your HR capacity to plan and support the business, okay, so that you too can be what? Strategic. Now, let's quickly run through a few things HR can do. We're already doing it, but we'll now do it with greater intentionality, okay? Talent acquisition, we will still have to hire, but make sure that when you are recruiting now, the role is critical. So, for example, maybe previously, if 5 people exit an organization, by default, you replace all the 5. Now, once anybody voluntarily resigns, please, it's not an automatic, it's not a default that you must replace that person. No. Ask, meet with the HOD, the relevant stakeholder. The person that has gone, this work or pool of work, can we share it to existing employee? So don't make recruitment and replacement an automatic thing. Times we are in because you want to reduce your chance of having to downsize. So any natural attrition, look at it very well. Okay, so focus on, and when of course you have to hire and recruit, focus on hiring candidates with skills in what? Cost optimization. So these are the set of new skills you are looking for now. Cost optimization, risk management, digital transformation. Please, on a lighter but serious note, if you want to hire an HR now, maybe you have 2 candidates. You must ask the 2 candidates that without giving you money, how can you improve employee engagement? The one that cannot tell you how it can improve employee without money. Don't hire the person, not in this time and window. Hey. Develop relationship with all your talent pool sources. Can be technical colleges, polytechnic, can be all these coding schools, vocational centers, so that you can ensure that you are even providing some sort of support to be able to groom your talents in such a way that they will be ready to support a challenging business environment. Where possible, leverage on what? Technology for efficient recruitment to reduce cost as much as possible. Okay. Let me also quickly add, even though it may be in subsequent slide, but don't let me risk that. Some of the roles too. So when somebody leaves too, and you can't redistribute the work internally, you may want to outsource the work. And by outsourcing, outsourcing to outsourcing company is an option. You could also outsource to professional individuals as freelancer. So instead of now having somebody as your full-time staff, you can say, hey, give us 4 hours every day, or this is what you will deliver. You are not our staff. You can be working for 10 other companies, but we're now paying you per milestone or per. So rethink how you resource roles. So a role can be currently FTE, full-time employee. Somebody exits by themselves, and then you turn it to a freelance role. By turning it to freelance, you may even have 2 independent consultants handling it, so that there is no timeline. Please, let's be innovative and come up with solutions. Of course, production and productivity cannot stop. With respect to employee engagement, you need to upskill employees in what? Financial literacy. Let me quickly read this by a colleague here. It says, I work in a microfinance institution. For us, CBN upward review of MPR is a major concern. Hence, it's affecting our business prospects in areas of lending. Yes, people will run away. They won't want to borrow because increasingly the rate of borrowing is on the increase. And those who even take the risk to borrow stand a chance of defaulting, because if you borrow to produce and you're not able to sell quickly, from where are you going to pay back the loan? But of course, you can't give up. Your job is microfinancing, and banks are financial intermediary, but it now means the way you have to train your marketers and the way you try to also do your debt recovery, loan recovery, you have to tighten it. So maybe you used to touch base once in a month with people who owe you. Maybe now you turn it to once in a week. And maybe instead of repaying every month, you can say be repaying every week. Why? We want to reduce the risk of what? Default. We still must remain in business. Work around it. Thank you so much, my sister, for that contribution. So we are speaking on what? HR. So if I am the HR for all companies, before this year runs out, that's if you've not done it already, one of your internal sessions, and it can be external. By external, you don't need to pay anybody. Me, I like money, but you don't need to pay anybody. Speak to your major bank. They will send a financial analyst, or what do you call these people now? People who deal with financial advisory, free. Call your, what do you call them now? These people, our pension funds, they will be glad to send 1 or 2 staff to you without you paying, after you've been giving them business all this day. So upskill your employees' financial literacy. We've always needed it, but in this kind of critical situation, we need it more. Why? The truth is, no matter how much you love to continue to increase salary, you may not be able to increase your salary and outpace inflation. We've seen the inflation, and we've seen where it's coming from. Is your profits increasing like that? I doubt it. So upskill your employees in financial literacy. If you have done it before, do it again more intentionally, okay, so that they can also manage personal impact of what? Inflation. You don't want them to carry national economic, macroeconomic pressure to HR. And it's not your fault. Do you understand? But if you are not careful, you will carry the fault of what is not your fault. So be proactive. Provide them, introduce training in operational efficiency and adaptability. Very important. Educate teams on what? Hedging and risk management concepts relevant to their roles. Okay? This is very, very important. This is very, very important. Ladies and gentlemen, we are at the home stretch now. What we are doing now is profiling solutions. So feel free to either raise your hands to provide a solution. I will unmute you and you share with us either what you have done or what you are planning to do or what someone has done that has worked. Okay, please support our ministry at this intersection so that we can wrap up on or before 9 p.m. All right. Compensation and benefit, employee well-being and performance management. Ladies and gentlemen, as much as possible, try to introduce flexible compensation structures. For example, if you have not been doing so or not done so before, you have to link performance with bonuses. It's not all this free for all, cannot always happen again. And the people bringing in business, reward them for it. Because some other companies will reach out to them and they will divert the business or even cut completely. So you need to maintain your competitiveness without raising fixed costs as much as possible. So things like you can introduce additional commission. You can even extend that commission to back office staff. That anybody that brings staff, 0.5% commission. We don't care whether you are sales or not. And then push it. For example, in November, 3 non-sales people brought clients and you paid commission. Please don't do that one that you say you will pay the commission in Q1 2025. Could it work? The moment the client's business they brought pays, within 2-3 days, pay them the commission. Do you understand? So that you begin to celebrate and announce, you do recognition that the 3 staff brought, even if you don't want to specify the amount, and they've been paid. Let them handshake with the director or ED or MD, and then they are paid sharp. You don't even have to tie to salary. Okay. Introduce inflation adjustment benefits like transport allowance. So sometimes you don't have to necessarily touch the entire salary. Maybe you can't afford to. You can touch the transport component and say, 50% increase in transport allowance for everybody. Note, you just touched one parameter, which is transport allowance. I'll give you another example. If you can afford it, please, or if you can consider affording it, either meal subsidy. Subsidy can be, maybe you have a food canteen and before staff used to begin to pay 50% of it, or introduce free lunch for everybody. Or if you think lunch is expensive, whispering now, you can introduce free breakfast. Breakfast, you just limit to like boku bread. I'm not advertising for them. Bread and tea. Something very light. You understand? At least staff will say, my office, when they give us breakfast. Guess what will happen when you begin to, you now say that breakfast is between 7:15 and 7:45. Nobody will come late again. You have given them a wolf breakfast. Do something. Look at something you can do. Do something, ladies and gentlemen. Link your KPIs, to reflect the different things. So let your KPIs drive innovation, drive cost saving, and drive what? Resilience. Again, another thing I want to encourage us to do. See how, for example, today, in quotes, I, an HR professional, brought to the notice and consciousness of my fellow HR professionals the situation of Nigeria using data. You will be shocked that if you can also work with the finance of your organization, as much as possible, this may not necessarily work in one-man business that are not very transparent and highly secretive. They always complain that no money. The day they have money, they never complain. But if your organization have that level of disclosure and transparency, if you can show 5-year trajectory of your company, just like we have showed for Nigeria, what will happen is, if, for example, things are looking south, don't be, the fear is that staff will not panic and say, my company is in trouble. Let us run. No, you will be shocked that you will get even empathy. Of course, when you show them the situation, show what we are doing to stabilize. Maybe you are trying to diversify your business ideas, sources of income, maybe you are trying to create new subsidiaries, those kind of things. So apply wisdom. You don't go and say the one that people begin to japa the person that wasn't planning for Canada before. But where I'm coming from is when you communicate transparently about the company's financial health and then the strategic plans, employees will be able to moderate their expectation. They may even show more gratitude. I've been in a space where when the company showed that kind of thing, somebody said, MD, please, how have you guys been paying us? Because they saw The reality now dawned on them that there were months where the bank organization had to take an overdraft from the bank just to pay salary as at when due. It was not because the cash flow was adequate on a continuous ongoing basis. Ladies and gentlemen, I know for some of our colleagues who work in maybe one-man business or one-man domineered business, because I've worked in a PLC that is one man. If you know, you know. Please, look, I know that there are some jobs is on the in the office or on the field, but look at this thing carefully. For any role that sincerely, you can track performance, you can track productivity. They can do either flexi, hybrid, or once a week, twice a week instead of 5 days in a week. This is the time to consider it. I'll share an idea. A friend of mine, they did in the organization. This one did not even cost money. So they looked at where everybody was living. So this organization had multiple branches. As much as possible, they moved people close to the nearest branch, close to their house. I think Fidelity Bank also even did something recently, very recently. Another thing you can do, another friend of mine in the organization, they checked where each employees were living. So they now had a meeting to say, so if certain 8 people are living in Ikorodu, they will call the 8 people individually, but to one meeting together and introduce them to each other. Say, look at the 8 of you. You are living at Ikorodu. Do you know some of them are like, seriously? You live in Ikorodu? Which part of Ikorodu? Guess what? For those driving, the HR also encourage that those of you not driving, you are not going to be entering their motor for free. How much do you spend on transports every week? So maybe this hypothetical 5,000. Oh yeah, 3,000 out of it, they're giving the guy to top us his fuel. That's how they arrange internal Uber. Some that have maybe 2 people have the cars. One will say, okay, I will drive first week, you will drive second week. That's not a cost to the organization. It just looked at the data, got the people living in the same area, sent for them, had an informal meeting with them, and it worked out. Obviously, I'm not going to force anybody because somebody can say, oh, my husband will carry me or my wife, whatever. Just let's be creative. Again, use regular pulse survey to understand employee concerns and respond proactively. The days of 1 year survey, the pressure is too much. Okay, you can even have focus group. Now, to the big elephant in the room, thank God 1 or 2 people have mentioned it in the chat box. You may need to do organizational restructuring. And in some instances, it may not be the entire organization. It can be a departmental restructuring. It can be a unit restructuring. HR. Take a hard look with your line managers and management. Okay, if you need to right size, please initiate the conversation early. Okay, provide outplacement services and career counseling for employees who may be affected. So don't just throw them out in the code. Don't just call them one evening, Friday, December 31, and give them letter. Okay, plan it well, try and support them. You can extend something. You can say, we'll pay you 3 months in lieu of notice. Try and be as gracious as you can be. You can say, I see you have children. We'll pay 6 months HMO for your children. Be as humane as possible. If you need to help them with their CV, looking for a job, by extension, your performance appraisal at the end of this year, I foresee is going to be more brutal because of the reality. Okay, so if people need to be let go because they are not really pulling their weight or they need to be moved to another department, that they can be more optimal, please do not hesitate to do so. Okay, focus on retaining talents by adjusting compensation, implement financial welfare, advocate training, risk management. We've spoken to all this. And we as individuals, yes, we are HR together, but we are persons. And so I'm speaking to you as a friend, as a brother, as a colleague right now. Budget wisely to manage rising costs. Also, you as a person, reduce reliance on imported goods. I was at a MBA forum last Saturday, MBA at Lagos Business School. So we're doing a career fair, and the MBA students were making a presentation. And one of them doing a presentation said, and I'm saying this respectfully, that she uses Sensodyne And when she saw the price of Sensodyne, she just said, please, which other brands do you have? And then suddenly, I'm not demarketing them, it's a good brand. So please, but borrow yourself brain. That's just what I'm trying to say. If it will do the same thing, genuinely, this is not the time to, it's not every time you say you must use Prada, you must use Gucci. What you need is clothes, not designer. What you need is clothes. All right. Consider investing in assets that can withstand inflationary pressure. So some of us also have savings. Some of us, our savings have been wiped out. Some of us, that money I saved, instead of saving, if I used it to buy dollar, even though Patriot will also say if you buy dollar, you are helping naira to lose value, maybe real estate, those kind of things. Just please diversify, look well, and think well. Some people who didn't save are now making fun of people who saved. How are the mighty falling? All right. For the organization, some of us also run our own businesses, or we are the owners of our businesses. Okay, diversify revenue streams to reduce what forex exposure. Think about what you can do from your business that you too can get forex. What services can you render to get forex? What can you export? Please think about it very well. Leverage financial instruments for contracts to hedge against currency risk. Okay, build inventory strategically to cushion against foreign supply chain disruptions. I think I would just like to end on this slide. Try and, as HR, part of what you do in your retreat, if you've not done it already, or your management meetings in the next few weeks as we wind down 2025, scenario planning, scenario 1, scenario 2, scenario 3. Okay, lead cross-functional scenario planning workshops to prepare the organization for various economic outcomes. Nothing is cast in stone. Things can get significantly worse. Things can get significantly better. But you need to have a plan for plan A and plan B and plan C. It's not necessarily because your plan to leave it out exactly, but anybody with a plan will be resilient, will be agile, will be nimble, and will not be stranded. Okay, edge workforce risk. Use contract and gig workers for non-essential roles to maintain flexibility, especially roles that now become vacant are open. Don't be quick to go and hire somebody from a blue chip company to your company and you place them on govt. Okay, accelerate the adoption of HR solutions and tech, employee advocacy. If you can use your corporate might. I'll give another example. So I remember I used to work somewhere. Because of our size, we were able to negotiate with our insurance to get a discounted rate for comprehensive vehicle insurance and even third party. And then we negotiated and extended that benefit to our staff. So all our staff were insuring through us. Do you understand? Please think about how you can use your corporate size and might, to elevate, create opportunities, and reduce costs for your employees and their dependents as much as possible. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to, if any, take any contributions. If any, I'd like to take any questions and provide answers or get people on the team to provide answers. Please don't ask any difficult question. Now, good. Asamu, you're making fun of me. Okay. Any questions, any comments, any contributions, any shalaye? Thank you so much, Osamu. Thank you so much, Victor Ago. Thank you so much, Niola. Thank you, Aljala Bayomi. So let me see if I can allow participants to unmute. I hope some people not be in a crusade or marketplace. Thank you, Josephine. All right. Thank you. Madam, my sister, thank you so much, ma. I appreciate you, Madam Abdul Karim Kausara. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for joining. I feel honored, ma. God bless you, ma. My friend Udeme Achibong, thank you so much. Falari Sunday, thank you. Chukwemeka David Erundu, thank you. All right. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's go and get some rest, do some other things. Tomorrow, I may just be here on another topic, on another session. I'm ready. I hope I have the physical strength to do so. Thank you so much, Madam Adoronke, Olatero, Olagbegi. Thank you. Ayola Koka, thank you. Gbemisola Dosum, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Sunday. McCall, thank you. All right, so that I don't use the rest of the night to thank you, even though you deserve the thanks.